I don't believe in writer's block at all. I really think it's a choice, especially with everything, all the options we have creatively today. I really think it's a choice. So I don't believe in writer's block at all. I think, as long as you're living and you look around you outside your front, or even, and the internet is great for just everything from interesting to really super stupid conversation. You can find it.
An interview extra today, and I'm buzzing for this one because this man is super, super knowledgeable. I've been wanting to talk to him on a live or a video, like a full interview, for a long time. I really love what he does. I love what he does on YouTube. I love what his output content and just his music. I've been such a fan for a while. I'm excited to welcome Demuir into the place. Demuir has been a mainstay of forefront of house music scene, pushing out releases on stellar labels. Heavy touring, his funk-laden sound is always centered around soul, emotion, a passion that he pours into himself, and his sound remains globally appreciated. Definitely from me as well. Hailing from Toronto, Canada, he's got up super early for us. Big up to him. His highly anticipated Visions LP, which we're going to listen to in full. We're going to have a full-on listening party today. It's 8 tracks, crammed with house textures, deep emotions. It's got some great featured artists, including Fred P. from Black Jazz Consortium, Aaron KJ, and TUSH. He also, gang in the chat, you can go super on the production questions. Let's push him to the limit and see what we can get. We're going to do 5 things. Let's get him in here. Demuir, welcome.
Yeah, hello.
Hang on, where is it? Yeah, there we go. Welcome in, Dudio.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me here. It's been a while, man, but we've been chatting on and off throughout the years and staying connected. So I appreciate being here. This is great.
Thank you for doing it. Like, it was proper last minute as well. Like, so they said to me, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yes, I want to do it." And I was like, "Where can we fit it in? Shit, let's move things." I moved everything. So thank you for doing it.
Sure.
Right. Before we do fun stuff, we do silly stuff. It's lunchtime here in the UK, and we love a thing called a meal deal. And that's basically, you go to the supermarket and you get like a sandwich, crisp, combo, drink. You might not have them in Canada, but what is your go-to lunch setup?
Oh my gosh, lunch setup. If I'm out, if I can do it, I know you have this a lot in Brixton. Like if I can hit up like a jerk chicken place, like
nice.
A combo.
Nice.
Yeah, like the jerk chicken during the weekday, like a jerk chicken, rice and peas combo. I love that, man. If it's like a Sunday, they usually have like the soup specialty, so I'll rock the soup. Yeah, nice. Man.
That sounds. I want that. That sounds like a banging lunch. I want that. That sounds
good.
Man.
It'll put you to sleep.
Yeah. You go back to the studio and go, I'm done. Out, I need a little doze.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the fun. I mean, it's all fun, but that's the silly fun. The focus today, we're going to talk about Visions, the LP. You've just dropped it on your own label, Purveyor Underground. Let me say it right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to stop before we start listening to tracks. Tell us about it. Tell us about it from your end. Tell us about the kind of ideas and the visions and how it started.
Yeah. This project's been like a work of love over the last year and a half. I think I wanted to do a project that captured what it's like to be a creator. And I do believe to be a creator of art, music, whatever you do, it's really a gift. But I didn't want to come off deeply, intensely religious. So it's about it's acknowledging the gift of being able to create music. And at the same time, it's my relationship with God. So, that's why the cover is what it is. The cover is actually an interpretation. I had to license that image from a private collector in Britain, actually.
No way.
Yeah. So that image is about Daniel, who's gifted the gift of visions, telling King Nebuchadnezzar what his dreams were and what it all meant. And the men surrounding him were like, that's why their mouths are open, because he was accurate in the interpretation. And a lot of my music, it's like It's I don't know how to describe it, man. It's like an annoying thing, like a bass line floating through your head all the time until I actually get in here and put it down, and then something else enters, right? And I just think those are things. It's I say it's a small gift, but I know not everybody in life experiences that. So I wanted to have a project that captured all of that. So yeah, that's what the album is about. And so the vinyl was able to push out 8 tracks, but the digital release, which is on my Bandcamp and Beatport, has over 15 tracks. So there's a few tracks that aren't even on the vinyl itself, which is almost sold out, which is really cool. Like I got that just before I joined this.
No way.
There's only three copies of the vinyl left. Yeah.
Oh man, I love this album. I'm gonna go. I may go and buy this one. I hope that if there's some left by the end of this, I'm gonna go buy one.
I don't even have a copy yet. I'm still waiting for mine. So.
Oh man, I was gonna say I rarely enjoy house music albums, but I love this album, and I'm not just saying it. I love the flow of music. I loved sometimes I haven't enjoyed a house music album for such a long time like this album. I've listened to it a few times. I was in it this morning and I was just like, this is lovely. And it's just the movement of tracks and keeps you interested. And so thank you, first and foremost. It's great.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go through the 8 that are on the vinyl. Gang, you can go and find the other ones on his Bandcamp for the listen to the rest. And as I said, because I know about your YouTube channel, which we want to speak about in a bit as well. We're going to we'll talk about the tracks in depth and processes and how you did everything.
Sure.
So let's start with Ruth. Tell me about Ruth.
Ruth, yeah. So Ruth, I did that sort of in dedication to my mom. She passed away in September of last year. So
I'm sorry.
Ruth is actually so good, man. There's so many crazy things with that. She passed away in Israel, actually, which is on a biblical touring trip. So, I just think everything just happens for a reason. But I did that in dedication to my mom. Ruth is a biblical character. And again, you see what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to do this album, and you would listen to it not knowing it has, biblical references. So Ruth is a character in the Bible. There's a whole chapter, and it just embodies, it's a tribute to strong women who persevere and persist through things. And that's why that vocal is in there, that, how can I resist a person like that? Because those type of women and people add so much value to your life, at least to mine. So yeah, but that's the background on it. So
oh my God, I love
it's a bit deeper than what you expected, right?
No, do you know, sometimes you go, well, tell us about the track. Well, and I just sat down. I love a whole story. I love that there's thought and effort and just so much behind making these records. Oh my days.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how I make music. I go in with a very clear concept. Sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's very happy. This one is just very much about, straight spiritual relationships. So that's where the reference comes from, and everything just sort of falls into place.
Do you think other producers might fall down from just not having a thought behind and giving that kind of research and prep to making tracks, and just kind of sitting down and just making and seeing what happens? Or is there a kind of benefit to just sitting and playing and finding sounds and seeing what works together? Is there pros and pros against both sides?
Yeah, I think when it comes, my whole goal is to always create timeless music. I want, so like my album True School, that was 6 years ago. That was the concept behind that was a merging of old school assets versus new school assets, which make it true, because we always find ourselves in these debates about, what do you know, 50-year-old man? Like, what do you know about this music? And it's like, I know quite a bit, because I brought this, and this to it, which is what is influencing your artistry today, right? So when I did True School, that's where that came from. and people are still playing those records, those tracks today because it's honest music, right? You know, I really do believe that. Like, that's what makes timeless and sought after music, when it's honest and it's not formulaic to, you know, oh, let's see what buddy who's dressing kind of funny with the floral shirts and playing tech house today, like, you know. And I don't, that's not a shot at anyone specifically, but we do see that in our industry, and those guys, they come and go, like they burn out, and that goes for all music, not just our underground electronic music, but all music. When you're just there for the moment and you're just making tracks because you want to be in the top 10 whatever, as opposed to actually trying to say something that people can connect with, whether in the club or elsewhere, you know, it's easy to know who wins out in the longer term.
Amen. Amen. I'm glad my shirts have got toucans on when I play tech house. All good. I'm good. He wasn't.
Yeah. There's some great tech house out there. I mean, I don't mean to take a shot at it, but that's reality, right? Like,
let's play this record.
A lot of
I'm gonna. Also with your tracks, they're really long compared to however tracks are these days. And I'm like, I was listening to this one and I was like, oh, a long track. Yes, I can get lost in it and I can play it. And it's not 5 and a bit minutes.
That's another thing. That's another thing for the moment, right? Like this, like I couldn't believe, like, I'm starting to see like 2-3 minute tracks. Like, what do you want me to do with that? Like, that's good for streaming.
Yeah.
But as a DJ, you're there to create on these decks, you know, like, and tell a story or invoke an emotion. So I don't get it, but yeah, we're starting to see a lot of that now.
Let's play Ruth. Let's go for this.
How can I resist you?
There we go. Holy crap. Let's give that the rave on.
Whoa.
So
Wicked.
for our streams, right? Because we have demo streams on Mondays and we do demo feedback every Monday. So we have two things. We either have this, which is the rave on. That is pretty banging. We like this sort of track. Or I'm a big Hulk fan, and we have that. For the Hulk smashes.
That's funny.
Wiki. So let's talk about this track. So how do we what was your process when you start making tracks? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I generally go with I tell a lot of people that I'm coaching, this is always try to anchor yourself around the main melody or bass line of a track. So for me, normally I call it a main loop, whatever, right? So it was that thing with that nasty bass line, filtered bass line underneath it. It was like a guitar loop I found somewhere. And I just built everything around that. So I anchored a key, and then I separate the bass line out of it. If it makes sense for Ruth, it made a lot of sense. You know, once you have the key, I make sure that transitions to the kick and any other percussive loops I'm going to use that are part of the drums, snares, everything. Like it just, you know, music it's fascinating that way. Because when things are in key, no matter what instrument it is, not only does it sound cohesive, but things sound louder. So you don't have to fight with this loudness wars stuff, provided you tuned and EQ'd your sounds appropriately to whatever it is you're anchoring to in the track. So that's generally I go through it. I do a quick sketch. I step away from it for a couple of days, and then I come back, arrange the whole song, and I'll take another couple of days and then bounce out the pre-master and send it off for mastering.
Nice. That's very cool. I like that your hook. You're creating your hook around sounds and kind of that one part. Like that's your hook instead of some people go vocal. Some people you're going from a sound and an instrument. That's crazy. That's mental. That's cool as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wouldn't call myself the greatest musician or whatever. I can get around a keyboard, and I do play bass and drums as well. So I just come from that. Like, being out of key is okay sometimes, but generally you want to be in key. And I don't think a lot of people they just don't realize that their ears are already tuned to these 12 notes. There's no 13th note. It's 12 notes, 8 octaves. And that's how you know from the time you're born whether a person can sing or not, because the closer the person is to the key, it's like you're like, oh man, they can sing, right? So you should do the same in your music as much as possible.
I think I must be one of the furthest people away from the key.
Yeah. In your singing voice, trust me, mine is terrible. Mine is awful too. I've told it's hilarious. Like, when you're working with very talented singers, and you sing something to them, like, this is how you hear it in your mind, and then they actually do what it is supposed to be. It's just like such a contrast. So it's hilarious.
It rains when I sing. Oh, yeah, it does rain when I sing. You're right.
It rains when you sing. I just saw that in the chat. It's hilarious.
Harvey says, do you find yourself gravitating more towards being in the box with the accessibility of Loop Cloud provides, rather than writing some riffs and messaging around with your own hardware?
No, I have a healthy, what I would consider a healthy balance. I mean, I started producing in the 90s, so I was all out of the box. There was no Loop Cloud or any of that stuff. But over time, as you develop your sound, I know my sound requires some external things that just won't sound good as a VST. So it's a nice, healthy balance. I would say over time, I've acquired more outboard stuff. I repaired my ASR 10, which is a sampler from the 90s, and it's done some phenomenal things. Which external things? So yeah, like, I have a DeepMind 12. There's the Matrix Brute behind me. I have a mini Brute here. Arturia Micro Freak, which is a crazy keyboard. I made soul music on Moxie, and Darren Sarosian's Moxie label with that. Roland System 8. I have a Moog Subsequent 37 over here, which I've used on several projects. And I have a preamp that I run my mini Brute through for bass sounds.
Wow. Cool. Wow. Yeah. Is that right? Any samplers of how this is going in? Any samplers of your favorite samplers? Oh, that's cool.
Samplers, honestly, I don't think there's an awesome sampler right now for our time, right? Like, once it's digital, you can do whatever you want with it, So I use Serato sample quite a bit just for the flexibility, but that's a VST. They got Serato stems now, but the ASR 10, like, as an old school sampler, I'm not really sampling things in there anymore. I'm just pulling up stuff I might have sampled in there before, and then bringing it into my computer.
And then Hobbs says, what is your go-to VST or hardware that you're nearly on every track you've made, or that you cannot live without?
Yeah, great question. So the go-to VST is Serato sample. I start everything pretty much from that. And outboard gear, I have the ASM Hydrosynth Explorer down here. That's actually in Ruth. That's that sound that goes doo. It comes from the ASM.
Nice. That's cool. Oh, that's a Hydra synth. So sick. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know you guys in the chat. You've got that SP1200 on the brain since Steve Max said about it earlier in the week.
That's a great piece of kit, man. Hey, you know, the thing about, I've been like, man, I want to get one of those too. But I do have an MPC X. It's not exactly the same, obviously, but you know, it's the SP12 2400. They're 8-bit machines, right? So you just if you push it through a 8-bit distortion or whatever, you kind of get the same effect. I did in my DAW too, but yeah, those are great pieces of kit, man.
Okay, To That I Love You is the second track. Tell me about this one. I flipping love this track. I was listening to it about 3 or 4 times this morning in a row. And I was like, shit, I need to listen to the rest of the album and get my head around the rest of it. And I had to stop myself. So tell me about this track.
Sorry, To Know That I Love You? Is that
yeah, that's
part 2? Or?
Yes, part 1.
Oh yeah, okay.
A2.
Yeah, To Know That I Love You. That track is just really just some raw, just feeling based stuff, you know, in terms of what I feel when I'm making music. It's almost euphoric to some degree. So yeah, man, that's it's nothing too complex. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
There we go, gang. Holy moly. So the other thing we've got, apart from the rave horn and the Hulk smash, is basically a long time ago, I said somewhere on a live stream that I love kick drums, and everything has basically when I'm trying to pick tracks for data transmission for the premieres, I do a little kick test. And then someone basically, MXL basically sampled that and made a whole track out of it. And then Darius started playing it, and then Darius Rossi started playing it, and then it's done like 100,000 streams. But the whole kick test thing is now part of it. These streams, and we have the
okay, pass the kick test. I quite like the kick.
Thank you. And that one definitely passed the kick test.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Pass the kick test. Wicked. Yeah, that track, man. Jeez, it's one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Mine too.
Yeah, I did like. It's just that chord progression is just crazy. It's actually. I got it. I don't think they'll come after me, but Hiatus Coyote from Australia. So there was a jam session they were having, like some rare jam session, and I caught it. And that's why you hear the guy's voice like saying, "Yeah, do it." Like it sort of cuts off. So it's the bass player and the keyboard player trying to figure out what to do, and then. I forget the poet's name, but that's the voice you're hearing. Love, 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 love your country, love your life. It's a whole poem, so it all just sort of fit together. But that chord progression is everything. So yeah, I played once I figured out. I chopped it. I'll play over stuff just to sort of enhance and give a bit of different texture and keep things interesting. because it's loopy music, right? So like if I didn't add those additional keys or play bass on it, it wouldn't be what it is right now. So yeah, I love that tune. I haven't heard it in so long, so it's awesome.
You were saying when we were just off air that it's nice listening to these again because you kind of box them and send them out and then.
Yeah. I like when I finish a project, it's okay, it's done. So the only other time I'll hear it is if I'm DJing at a club or whatever, or somebody else is playing it, because my mind's onto the next project, which is, the stuff I'm working on now. It's very occupied in there. So yeah, it's a non-stop, relentless thing.
That's cool. Right. So, and then that track's followed up with part 2, and even with part 1 and part 2, there's a whole, like in my demo streams, like I was on a Monday, is basically thing that producers struggle with is we all have this so much is the kind of finding the little ear candies that just make a track like just finished and sounds so much and gives extra depth. And these 2 tracks have them so much. I was in love with them. Where do you find them? Where do you hunt for them? How do you find those little extras that can help these producers in the chat?
Yeah, like when it comes to sampling, I tell people sample everything, sample every day. If there's something like intuitively, it's gotten to the point of if I'm even watching TV and I hear something, I'm making a note. Like I'm on my iPhone making a note, and I'll go back to it, and I'll go get that. I do quite a bit of record digging still. I think there's just things on a piece of vinyl that you just won't find anywhere else, So I do quite a bit of record digging. Not as much as I used to, because vinyl, if you're a vinyl head, you know how it gets, right? Like you just like I had like 10,000 records and I sold a few, but I'm back at it again. There's a bunch of vinyl on the floor here. They just sort of live everywhere, don't they? They don't really have. They start in a home, and then they just become, and then they just sort of live in little piles all over the place. And you unlift something, you're like, oh, there's a little pile of vinyl. I forgot about that little pile. And there you go, right? Like they crawl into every space if you're not careful. I mean, we're in that time, like with technology, where we could sample anything from anywhere. So that's where I'm at with it. Like I go for what catches my ear and grab it, chop it up, do something with it.
But definitely don't sample me again, guys. No. The last
the kick test.
The last time, like, do you know the thing with that is, I say okay all the time, and every time I say okay now, I hear that sample, and it actually drives me up the bloody wall. Like I'll go okay, and then or I'll say okay in the office, and then one of the others will go bastard kicked it, and I'm like, no, stop doing that. It's literally driving me up the wall. Like
they got it on Stream Deck, ready to go.
Yeah, it's driving me up the wall. Right, so let's listen to part 2. Why is there a part 2? This is part 2 of the previous one.
There's a part 2 for that because when I was making, with that particular, a couple of songs, I had different versions of it, and it's something I normally don't do. I'll just commit to the one version and put that through. But with that one, with Moody Man's voice, I had to be sure that it sat well in the mix with. So in the first one, it just wasn't working. It was just like something is missing. So I figured it out on part 2 when I swapped out the sample. It's much more aggressive, and that's the feeling I wanted. It's just like this persisting thing. So to come back to the concept of the album with Visions, like I'll wake up some mornings and it's just this constant, like, do this bass line, write it down, do it now, all day, until I actually do it. So that's what that's about. That sample, man, it's very driving too. So to have his vocal talking over it all just culminates to this nice space that just makes sense for the track. So that's why part 2 went out.
we go. We'll get on the whole man. That's a big track, dude.
Thank you so much, man. I'm looking here. It's so like I said, it's so funny to come back and it's funny to come back and listen to the track. I don't know if you can hear that, but I was like, man, I didn't realize I used the Fender Rhodes note. I played it more percussively just to change it up. So it's good. Da 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 da, and I'm pretty sure it's the Hydrosynth. Yeah, it's right there. It's funny.
Sick. Everyone was loving those surround sound. Those key hits are dope as hell. Harvest vibes on vibes. The rolling bass line of those keys is sick. Yeah, everyone was loving that one.
Yeah, thank you. Like it's like I said, it's an aggressive track. I like that track too because it's a track a DJ can put on and use Moody Man as a vehicle to speak to people while they're playing, so yeah, that track works.
Someone asked in the question, is the sample from an Red Bull Music Academy lecture?
Yeah, the Moody Man sample, I don't believe so, because it's got, if you're listening carefully, there's like some singing in the background, like it almost sounds like it's from the radio. I thought it was from there. I have to go back and check where the hell I got it from. But I did know, like, just for other producers here, I DM'd Moody Man to say, hey, I've done this. I sent him the album and a copy of the track just to say, hey, if you're concerned, please let me know. Because his voice is part of his artistry, obviously. So I did reach out and I haven't heard back. Cool. Hopefully he's okay with it. But it is what it is. I mean, like, it's to the point where like my stuff is getting sampled. People are sampling my drums. And I hear it all like, I know, oh shit, that's mine. Like, and it's pretty flattering, I'm pretty cool with it, but you got to be careful. So
I feel a load of the producers in here will be using those little key stabs. That I think that the amount of them they're giving it the love. Well, demo streams in the coming weeks, we'll start seeing the little key stabs in there. Also, whilst someone else resumed some more cowbell. So I've got some instruments too. I've got some cowbell, which I have to be careful with the drumstick because I've hit myself in the head with the drumstick a couple of times. I've also got one of these. See what you can do with one of these.
That's a good part.
What music were you listening to when you were growing up?
I listen to pretty much everything, man. My dad's he's classically trained actually in guitar, so we had like loads of like, and he's from Trinidad. We have a Trinidadian background, so like everything from calypso, soca, reggae, jazz, a little bit of classical, 70s rock, some dope 70s rock that I love, like dope 70s rock, so that's quite an eclectic room of different sound choices and stuff that I grew up with. So yeah, and then I got into hip hop and realized, they're sampling records my dad already had. So that started a whole thing. Yeah, it's so crazy. It's like I was listening to this and my dad was playing it casually, and then Q-tips rhyming all over. Like, what? So
Skellen Keys has been listening in the car and was squirming, hopes that someone mentioned those keys in the last track. Ah, dude. And your video tutorial on Skylar has inspired me to buy it. Ah,
awesome. That's great. We have so much good tools, like great tools. Like, there's no. I saw a question earlier about, what do you do about writer's block? And I've covered this on my YouTube channel a couple of times. I don't believe in writer's block at all. I really think it's a choice, especially with everything, all the options we have creatively today. I really think it's a choice. So I don't believe in writer's block at all. I think, as long as you're living and you look around you outside your front, or even, and the internet is great for just everything from interesting to really super stupid conversations. You can find it. and that could inspire you in different ways. So yeah.
Do you think when they're saying that on the internet, it could be more that they're experiencing stress or other things going on in their life that's just they're focused on more than what than being creative? And that's what they're deeming is right. That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot more distractions for sure. Like I said, I started producing back in the 90s, man, as a 16, 17-year-old kid. And like it was like head down. I could just do that. I didn't have social media to deal with, you know, and some of those pressures and just being inundated with all kinds of different information, solicited or unsolicited, coming at you, you know, like, so for sure, like it's a different time, but I don't know, it's a lot more noise. And if you know what you want, I think you can cut through it and get to where you are wanting to be.
That's cool. Okay, let's talk mind, body, and soul. Call me. This is the one thing I love about your music, dude. It can either be from stumping house tracks to lovely disco moments, and you've done this on Hot Creations. Like there was a Hot Creations EP a way back that did exactly this. It was like thumping, then a disco, and I absolutely love that you do this on a lot of your stuff. Do you feel this is the benefit of albums and EPs, that you can show more of a sound and range, and it gets more music out there that you're into, and just it's not affected because there are a lot of singles out there and people are pushing singles a lot.
That single thing is playlist culture, man. And I think it's so limiting and boring. I really do. So that's the singles piece. I'll just stop there because because I you know, they're promoting that, you know, with best intentions. They're promoting that because we have a generation of people who've never, you know, held a piece of vinyl in their hand or a CD or downloaded an MP3. They get to know each other through swapping playlists and to show this is my musical taste and thus therefore an extension of who I am, which is fine, but it shouldn't come at the cost of artistry and who you are, right? So, you know, I tend to gear towards I'm going to do a project and it's going to be diverse. And you're going to know it's me because I have my signature on it, whether it's a deep house track to a tech house to a funky jackin' or stompin' house track, to use your words. So I find that much more meaningful in my exchange of being a creator and sharing it with the world and an audience. That's much more meaningful than a single 2-minute, 3-minute track that is just one dimension. You know, we're all people here, right? Like, and we're complex in nature. You have varying interests, I'm sure, Graham, outside of music. You know, like you're running and stuff. You know, that's another dimension of your life. Whereas I think as an artist, you shouldn't just limit yourself to just this one genre mentality and growing your tech house artist, like audience or whatever. Like, you know, you're much more than that one thing that people are trying to box you in. So I remember when I stopped caring about what genres my music landed in, everything just opened up, you know? So I'm not afraid to do these things, but mind, body, and soul, bro, that track. When I heard that sample, bro, I was like, I heard the sample and I knew exactly, I heard the whole track. And going back to the concept of this album, as we discussed before, you know, I want your mind, body, and soul. Call me, you know, don't give me any kind of resistance, which is the breakdown. Oh, I just love it. And it's funky as fuck, man. It's a track. I remember when I finished that song and the album wasn't out. It's funny. I'm playing there this weekend at House of Yes. I played it at their sister club called House of X in Manhattan, and it went off. Like, and that's what that track is. People can connect to those words. You know, do you want my mind, body, and soul? Oh man, but you know, you can, and you see couples singing it to each other on the dance floor. Like, that's just the best thing. You know, I love that.
I love it. I don't want to talk about House of Yes in a minute because I've never been there, but it looks absolutely amazing. But let's play this track first, and then we'll talk about House of Yes. go. That track's
Wait,
sick. Let's. Oh wow, that was cool. There's a load of big questions in the chat. Harvest, with removing your catalog and Purveyor's Underground's catalog from Spotify, do you still see growth via other channels that aren't necessarily Bandcamp or offer sales or downloads?
Yeah, I certainly do. I like this whole thing came up. I did an interview with Attack Magazine, and it was during the pandemic. Well, we're still in a pandemic, but in the early stages of COVID, I just made the decision, like, I'm not giving Spotify any more of our catalog, just because the business model only benefits a few, and it's certainly not for Purveyor Underground, in my opinion. So we did that, and then Attack Magazine followed up recently. Like, I think they published the interview 2 weeks ago. And yeah, it's been great. Like, between Bandcamp and just Beatport, which is our primary retailer for Purveyor Underground, and now we have Purveyor Underground Limited, which is the vinyl side of things, I've actually seen an increase in revenue. And those labels that tell you that their revenue has increased by being on streaming is part of a function. They're not giving you the whole picture, which is their instead of deals when they sign music being 50-50, a lot of labels are starting to say, we're going to take 60, 70, even 80% of net sales. So yeah, their revenue goes up, but it's only because they protected themselves in the distribution of sales. Now, this is not necessarily true for all labels. I'm sure there's some outliers in the analysis, but in general, that's not indicative of progress. You as a label taking more from the artists in a streaming world and saying, yeah, we're doing fine, we're making more revenue. No, you just up the distribution of what net revenue comes to you. So to answer the question, I'll give you a perfect example with Visions. First 2 weeks, it was on Beatport. Then last Friday, I put it on Bandcamp. And over that one weekend on Bandcamp, I've made more money for my own music, like in terms of a project where I could say, yeah, I can expect a couple of thousand, like right off that, because it's mine. And it's like it equals one track, X amount of dollars, and it's going into my pocket because it's my stuff. Whereas with streaming, it's a joke. I can only say that's what works for me and the label.
Skeleton Keys, how do you feel about AI? Will it affect music? Do you think AI could mimic soul?
That's a great question. I don't think AI can mimic, but I do think AI in the right human hands could open up it's funny, it's ironic to say that, right? Can do some super creative things. I mean, there's that video, the Get a video going around with, I wrote these lyrics as a joke, and I got Eminem's to say these things, and it sounds pretty funny and cool or whatever. You have those scenarios, but AI's been around for a while, especially in Korea. They used it to determine what is the most optimal song structure and what people react to for K-pop. Yeah. And then,
that's sick.
And they just keep repeating that formula. But this is the beauty of the human spirit. Eventually we're just like, this is boring. I don't like this anymore. I'm going to go over here. Just completely unpredictable stuff. So I think it's good in the right hands. And I do think it could provide some expansive opportunities for creators.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's like just a skill you're going to learn. Like I think even like using Google you have a skill of using Google. There's some people that use Google really well, and there's some people that just type a load of rubbish in and just don't get the answers they want. I think these are skills you'll learn, and using AI is going to be a skill that you learn and bring it into the rest of your creative process.
Absolutely.
Loads of lovely comments for that last track, by the way. The clavinet reminds me of Hudson Records. That flute though, that clav.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the clavinet is me. I'm playing that. That's like a stock Logic has, like when I returned to production, like in 2014 2015, I was using the clavinet quite a bit from Logic, and I just ran it through some preamps, and it sounds like the original machine, the Honor clavinet. So yeah, it works, man. Like, switch it up. That's why I always encourage producers, man, get like you. I don't consider myself a master musician. I've worked at this, but just like listen to records and try and figure out what they're doing, man. Like I learned a Herbie Hancock trick recently, and man, I've been doing it in a couple of songs that I haven't released yet, and it's like, wow, this guy. That's why he's so dope as a jazz musician, because he heard harmonies in a different way, and we can all pull from these things. Just because we're in electronic music, we don't have to be zoned to samples necessarily.
Agreed.
But yeah, on that track, I played over the bass, I play the Rhodes and the clavinet, and there's some couple of sustain notes in there I've added too. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Jackson Swaby, question for whenever it's relevant or while I remember back to what you said at the beginning with the album having an unseen meaning and depth. Do you think it's our job as artists to make sure it's up front for the listener, or let the ones that want to dig find it?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think you just need to put out what feels right to you. You know, some artists feel this need to make sure it's very obvious and upfront, make sure people get what you're saying. They're doing like construction here. Sorry for the noise if you can hear it. I swear to God. And other artists like myself, I'll just put something out there to invoke a conversation. So now that we started at the top of this, and I say this to people too, like who ask me about visions, like, you know, the concept of it. Do you know who that guy in the red is? You know, and who that guy with the crown on his head on the left is? Well, that's Daniel, and he's from the Bible, and that's King Nebuchadnezzar. Oh, you've heard of King Nebuchadnezzar in the Matrix? The Nebuchadnezzar, that's the ship is named after. So, you know, it just
that's cool.
Yeah. So I just think you need to just tell your story, and as long as you're telling it honestly, I don't feel a need to be super obvious. I'm just putting out a feeling, and that's enough for me.
Let's play the next one. So Skylar, hang on. Oh, sorry. Skylar features TUSH Love or TUSH and Love. TUSH, yeah. You feature a few vocalists. Do you have any tips for working with vocalists? Maybe plugins you use to make them sound amazing, or how do you work with them? What's the best ways?
Yeah, the best way. Well, with this song, quickly, Skylar, that came about rather quickly. The way I work with vocalists is just like Lusting You, for example. I'll have the beat and I'll just give it to the vocalist. And if I have a particular vocal phrase, like Lusting You was very easy. Like before we joined the stream, Carrie was asking me for stems for it because he's doing some sort of hologram performance with Louis Vega later. It's really cool. But anyway, so with that, Lusting You, it's very straightforward because it's in the vocal. Sorry for this noise. That's like drilling. It's like, okay. I could see the fire in your eyes, you know, your body's burning, but you know you need the light. Like, it's a very strong phrase. And I'm like, don't mess with it. Just keep doing that. Whereas with Skylar, I was like, I got this beat, write to it, Camilla from TUSH. And she wrote to it. I got it back and I was like, I don't think the beat works anymore, you know? So I changed the beat and I just jammed over her vocals. So that's a reverse of the process, but it worked out. But in general, I'll have a beat already created and ask them to write to it and then finish it off. In terms of processing, I really love using, I'm a UAD guy, so I use the Neve 33609 compressor. And that is the most musical compressor for vocals, in my opinion. I used it on Home Sweet Home as well, where it's doing its job. It's keeping the dynamics of the vocal performance where I want it without it sounding squashed. And that's why I love that compressor on vocals so much.
Right, let's play Skylar.
I know life can be a little tough, catch you by surprise. Love me softly, one night of your life. I don't need forever. I don't need forever. I don't need forever. I just wanna love bang. I don't need forever. I can't give you life. I can't give you.
There we go. Love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're enjoying the trip down memory road, aren't you?
Yeah, I wrote that on a hydrosynth. It's like. Like, wow. Hydrosynth, you probably can't really hear that.
We could. It sounded amazing.
You know, no,
That's
it's
sick.
funny. I didn't have the patch ready. It's literally the first patch on the hydrosynth, and I just boosted the cutoff. It's like,
They're loving it.
It's right there. Like, it comes in. Here's the original. It's very light.
Mm.
And the thing about that's better. The only downside to the hydrosynth, in my opinion, is it's got too much reverb on almost everything. So wrong note. Anyway, yeah, I wrote it on that. It's fun.
Amazing. That's amazing. Hey! That's really cool. Well, Vassie said that's a Sorry Miss Jackson reference melody. Nice. Was it? Okay. Skelenke says that he loves the warmth in the mix, clarity without harshness. Yeah, cool.
That's funny about the mix. Like, I mix as I go along. I actually, I'm not trying to plug it, but I did a masterclass on Noodle for it. Just showing my process around mixing as you go along. Because traditionally, a lot of people just, they go through the whole process of sketching and arranging, and then they start the mix. And I do it like as I'm putting the idea together. And I got into that habit. Someone told me, I think it was this guy Gadget, who's, if you're familiar with Drake's work, he's like the senior engineer on Drake stuff. Back in the day with my ASR, he was telling me, yo, man, just focus on quality samples and EQ them as you're building the idea, so you don't have to worry about it later, and it'll save you a lot of time. And I've just carried that through. So yeah, I mix as I go along.
You just got Mike Freak buying more gear.
Yeah, I tell you, man, the hydrosynth is dope. It is so crazy. It happened to me, I think we all experience this as musicians when we go to the music store and we're like, oh, I'm not going to spend any money. I'm not going to spend any money. $4,000 later.
Wow,
Go down here, and you don't even know where you're going to put it. That's the best part. Where am I going to put this in the studio? So it's funny.
And how am I going to get around my wife, my girlfriend?
Yeah, in some cases, right?
Yeah, that's in lots of cases. Let's talk YouTube. You have a YouTube channel, and it's absolutely banging. And if you're not going and checking it out, go and check it out, gang. If you haven't checked it out, are you still doing the Patreon thing as well? Like, I saw you doing that for a while.
Yeah, Patreon is still going on. I do a weekly production stream there, but Noodle is. I'm slowly migrating my content over to Noodle. Mm-hmm. And Noodle is basically like Patreon, but it features asymmetric like conversation. So I post something, I could say, all right, I'm going to make this available to everyone, or I'm going to give this to the Noodle members. So, for example, my Mix As You Go Along masterclass, all 13 chapters come automatically with the membership. Or if you don't want a membership, you just pay for the specific chapter you want out of the course. Whereas Patreon features this stuff too. But over time, like I want something where I could easily interact with people. So it's just been a growth process. So
That's
yeah.
cool.
So for my YouTube channel, people get into those, and Discord as well.
Yep. I'm in your Discord. It's great fun.
Yeah, man.
Right, let's carry on. Where are we up to? Right, we skipped ahead. We're going to go back to the feeling of knowing because I missed a track. Brilliant. Tell me about the feeling of knowing.
I thought we did that one. I think you missed the dreams.
No. I've been working. We did Mind, Body, Soul. Then we did Skylar, and I missed the feeling of knowing. And I love the feeling of knowing because I love the kind of. What I've noticed is your arrangement seems to be different to a lot of tracks, and I love them. They just flow lovely. And I just was going to ask you about the kind of how you arrange tracks, how you kind of keep them unique to yourself.
It's funny, yeah. I used to hate arranging tracks, man. I was one of those people that would put the beats together, like the sketch together, have a nice 8 to 16 bar loop going. It's like, oh, I gotta arrange it. But over time, I've come to really love it because I think there's little subliminal things you can do to keep the listener interested. I see it almost like a game or a challenge. And it depends on the song. Like, sometimes the song speaks to you in terms of how the arrangement should fall out at certain points. So that's my approach, really. It's never, I mean, there's a standard, like there's, the intro, make sure it's DJ friendly. Then there's the body of the song, and then there's the outro to allow the DJs to be creative. I always think that structure is very important, but what you do in between in terms of the body of the track, you can do a lot of creative, cool things. So
I love it. Let's play this then. The feeling of knowing. Let's go for it. There we go. That's a banger.
Yeah. Now I remember. I'm like, did we do this? Oh, we haven't. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, that one. I knew that I had to try and make that as interesting as possible in the arrangement because it's a very, like it's just a straight 2-beat, 4-beat loop. So the interesting thing is the vocal, right? And doing some creative things. So she's saying, closer, closer, I just want to be closer. So there's that when you realize what she's saying. And then I like doing that, just letting it go in terms of the whole phrase of what she's saying. And conceptually, it worked well, the feeling of knowing, because it's just like when you go back to the concept of the album. I just want to be closer, right? Without being deeply or explicitly religious in it. But yeah, that's generally what I feel in my relationship with God. So, yeah, that one worked out. The snare pattern too. That's a Dilla thing I learned, is not only do I play it freehand without quantization necessarily, but I do like to change it up, right? I don't like it to be this predictable 2/4 sort of thing right throughout the song. That's why it's like, but it's a feeling, and that's the energy you put into the song. So
a lot of people talking about the snare hats, the snare. Everyone's talking about the snares, and pass the snare test.
Pass the snare farm.
Pass the snare, and also the Dream Part 2 featured Fred P. Tell me about Fred P. and where you found him, and kind of where are you finding these vocalists as well?
Yeah, well, no, the Dream Part 2. It's that because Fred P. and I. So let me go back. So I was introduced to Fred's work early days when Kasi had launched Quench, and the first record on Quench was a collab record Kasi and I did together. And one of the songs was called Please Me, and she asked Fred P. to remix the song. So he remixed it, and it's like a beautiful remix. So much to the point, like I don't play the original. That's how powerful it is. So I always remember, like, man, if I got a project going, I need to get him on the project. So fast forward a number of years later, I just hit him up on Instagram and said, dude, like, thank you again for that remix. Would you like to get on this song? And I had a sketch of the Dream originally, and then we did it over a weekend, like on a Saturday and Sunday, just passing files back and forth. He's in Germany, and I'm here in Toronto, Canada. So it was the Dream, and then I put Dream Part 2 because he elevated it to a whole other level. Like I learned some really cool tricks just by the exchange of stems and what he did. Like he took a beat. I had a percussion loop in there, and what he did is he separated it. He had one EQ'd as the low and the other EQ'd more in the mid to high range. And then when they're separated like that, you can get very specific accents out of that mix. So when they're brought together, it sounds better than the original thing. So that happened, and then he added some keys on it, and then I wrote the bass line, added some more Rhodes to it. So it's this lush, soulful, deep
Dream.
soulful house affair. Yeah, the Dream Part 2.
It's definitely like when I was listening to the album this morning, it's like, well, those 8 tracks in it's like it was like the lemon sorbet, and it's like it just sort of cleanses before that Come Sweet Home comes in right at the end. It was just like I was just like, oh, this is lovely little, and then you get slammed with the last track, and it's just like I'm excited for you to hear this, gang. Let's play this now. There we go, gang. How lovely was that track? Oh, my days.
Lush, yeah.
Skeleton Keys was saying, want to know about your percussion techers. Wide mix. He's loving your wide mix. And also, those shakers are so good. They're like present, but not pokey.
Yeah.
No one likes it. No one likes a pokey shaker.
Yeah, it's so. But I think all of that stuff is, I encourage this a lot in my workflow now. Like it's to the point where loop cloud is like a staple in my workflow, and I'm not saying that because I've done sample packs for them or whatever. It's just honestly, it's such a good way to organize the samples in your library and make sure things are in key. Like it allows you to do that and time stretch all of that great stuff. So yeah, it's definitely helped level up the game and have those sureties of, yeah, everything is in key and it's sitting nicely in the mix, because you can preview the sounds as you're sketching the beats. So it's cool.
We spoke about House of Yes earlier briefly. You're playing there tonight. Is that right? Or this weekend? Tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm playing there tomorrow night on Saturday in New York. Brooklyn, New York, man.
Have you played there before? Like I've seen it and it looks amazing. Like it's a place I definitely need to go to because it's all the things that I love about music by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
It's my fourth time there. I think it's my fourth time there. It's amazing, man. They have such every time I play at House of Yes, I remember, yeah, man, this is what house music, electronic music is about, you know. It has a very strong theatrical gay vibe to it, but there's also a very deep sense of community that's there. Like, they're involved in the community. The people who are there, they're there because they have intense need to be there, because it's it's an extension of themselves. It's very obvious. So I always look forward to going there, man. Even House of X is great. Their sister club in Manhattan, slightly different vibe, but same thing, like strong sense of community. Sound is great. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to getting back there.
That's cool.
Reminds me, I got to change my flight. my flight on Sunday is like super early. I'm like, I'm not going to.
Oh no!
I got to do that. I got to make that change today. Thank you for reminding me.
It's cool. The last track of the 8. Obviously, we spoke. There's a whole load of loads more on the Bandcamp on the digital. But for the last track of the 8 is "Home Sweet Home," and this is it's a big classic house music track. I love this track, and it's a lovely way to end the 8. Tell me about it some more. Yeah,
Aaron K. Gray, an amazing vocalist in our scene, male vocalist. Like, I think he's incredible. I first came across Aaron's work. I did a remix for Nervous. There's a song he did with DJ Gomi called All I Need, and I did like sort of like a disco sort of salsoul remix of it, but his voice is incredible. Like, I knew I had to get him on this album, considering the concept of the album. So he took it to a whole other place. There's over 30 voices in those vocals, and he's singing them all.
What the hell?
Yeah, when I got the vocal, it's like the vocals are like stacked, man. Like, here you go, 30 vocals, and it's just perfect. I had to do very little processing on it, but it's a gospel take with like you said, classic house groove to it. Yeah, I wrote all the parts in there, and it's it's actually a guitar sample that I chopped up from a jazz record.
Nice.
And yeah, it's like it'll fly by you. Like, if you heard the original, you wouldn't know. So I just like took the chord pieces and played it in Serato sample, and then added some bass and some additional keys, and he killed it, man.
That's cool. That's very cool. Let's play this. And gang in the chat, how many of you expect him to pull out a guitar from his little array back there after we play this track and then be like, let's play it.
Sure.
When I think of you, I think of a place called home. Yeah. When I see you, I see beautiful people I know. Spending time with you, since when I'm home, I'm never alone. I enjoy my time with you. You're my family, you're my home. This smile is you, and the joy that you bring, there are no. Just knowing you has a greater value than gold. You done you, so precious and more than a stone.
There we go. Oh, I could have listened to that all afternoon. That was lush, that track. Big up, man. That's cool.
Yeah,
Let's get
man.
that there.
Thank you.
There's some more great questions. There's some more great questions in the track, in the chat. Have you ever got your dad on a record?
No, that'll never happen. He's he's got, it's funny with certain musicians, not all musicians fall into this, but he's certainly one of them. Like, he's just thinks if it's not an instrument, like, it's not really music, right? But sampling is a real art,
Agreed.
But yeah, no, that hasn't happened. I don't think it will, because he just can't get his head around sampling. So
someone else said, fairly new to production, but how can an artist have tracks which totally sound different but yet have the same signature sound? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's all about finding your sound, and falling into, with confidence, the things that inspire you, that become a part of your musical DNA. We all have it. Like, I always love to say this, there's close to 8 billion people on the planet, but each person is unique in their own way, and it's the same with artistry. You develop, like, I love a great Fender Rhodes and sweet bass line and swing in my drums, that's part of my musical DNA. So as you fall into that, it'll translate into everything that you do. You don't even need to overthink it.
And we all know mine. Mine has to pass the bloody kick test, for crying out loud.
There you go.
And then, so the last track was called Home Sweet Home. I just was going to talk about just like things you do at home, like what you obviously making music a lot, and do you have kind of hobbies outside of home and outside of kind of that keep you healthy? Otherwise, than just that when you're making music all the time and it becomes your hobby becomes your passion. Do you have something that kind of keeps? Do you have other hobbies that you're into? And you look quite stacked, dude. Big up.
Well, I don't know. I don't really have hobbies necessarily, because music is so it's so all consuming for me, because it touches so many. It touches every area of my life, to be honest. But in terms of other interests, I like to go. I'm a member of art gallery, the AGO, which is the Art Gallery of Ontario in Canada here. So I try and get there when I can, just to see different pieces of visual art, photography as well. I like reading. That. Yeah. And reading is a whole other thing. Like, you could get opened up to so much more. And I think what I love about this stuff is that your interpretation of all of these things finds its way back into this room. So
yeah, are you a book reader? Are you an Audible or a reader or
Audible guy? It's faster, man. I can read, I can take in much more information that way. If I read like a book, I'll fall asleep, man.
And what are you? What was the last thing you read? I love reading books as well. Like I've got my Audible's always stacked. What's been good for you?
Yeah,
what do I need to download?
Last book. Look at my library here. Last book I read was How to Talk to Anyone by Leah Lowndes, and The Richest Man in Babylon. Now I've read that several times. It's a great book because the principles in there are universal.
You must be successful with money.
That's one of the lines in the book.
Nice.
So yeah, I read that. Ray Dalio's Principles. It's a really great. Yeah, Ray Dalio.
I'm not heard of any of these. These are great. I'm going to download loads of these. I've got loads of credits.
He created the Bridgewater and the Vanguard investment fund.
Nice.
And he talks about the power of meritocracy and all that. The next book I'm going to read is by Rick Rubin on principles of creativity. So
I've seen a lot of people sharing this book. I'm going to download this book as well. I read a one called Emotion by Design, which is a guy that used to work for Nike for 30 years, Greg, which is really good about brand and design and community, and that was really good.
Oh, cool! I'll check that out.
I'll send you the screenshot. It's really cool.
Yeah, hit me with that, man.
he literally worked for Nike for 30 years and kind of went through like he kind of was part of the Air Jordan and the kind of all those big brands like becoming brands and the removal of the Nike from the swoosh and all that kind of stuff. And he was part of that forefront of that. So it's a really good, really interesting book to read.
That's cool. Yeah, man. I'll check that out.
Wicked. It's 5-2. Hooray, we made it. We've got all the music in and we got all the chat in. We were first. Demuir, thank you so much for doing this.
You.
It's been absolutely so much fun, and it's been lovely to talk to you finally. And I wish you all the best for this album. And I know you've got a new single coming up, a new EP coming up shortly as well, which I can't wait to hear that as well.
Yeah,
so thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think I got something on Monoside and Frappe. Is the label out of France. More sort of disco, housey stuff there that I haven't done in a while.
Nice.
So look forward to sharing that. Yeah, and there's just loads of stuff I need to get out. So check my Bandcamp as much as possible because that's where.
Gang, go and check his Bandcamp. Go and be part of his Discord. Go and follow him on YouTube. Demuir, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Really
Thanks for having me again. Appreciate you, man.
If you found this interview interesting, consider giving it a like and a comment. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, and let me know your biggest takeaway below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch. I'm back on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you can check out the schedule from the link below as well to see who's coming up in my interview series. I'll see you in the next Twitch stream or the next YouTube video. I'll see you soon. Bye.